When Cher speaks, the world listens, but this time, she's talking about something or someone truly unexpected, Leon Russell. What did the Queen of Pop have to say about one of the most influential yet mysterious figures in rock history? The answer will surprise you. This is one interview you don't want to miss. So, with that said, let's get into it. However, before witnessing what Cher will reveal about Leon Russell, let's go through his early life and music history. Claude Russell Bridges was born on April 2, 1942. Moreover, he entered the world with challenges already in his path. Claude was the second son of John and Hester Bridges. His mother recalled that he couldn't speak until he reached his late childhood, and shockingly, his first words were not simple. "What's the matter, little birdie? You cry?" he asked, watching birds in the distance. His mother stood in amazement, having never heard her son speak before. But there was more than just late speech that made young Claude different. At birth, an injury had damaged the second and third vertebrae in his spine, leaving him with a form of cerebral palsy. His right side, especially his hand, was affected. 3 fingers on his right hand didn't work the way they should, forcing him to rely on his left hand. That limitation molded his future in ways no one could predict. Claude would later say, "My chops have always been weak." The damage, though, pushed him to create a unique piano style. He never had the strength to play like others, so he found a way to make the music his own. Despite his physical difficulties, Claude's love for music was undeniable. His parents both played the upright piano, and at just 4 years old he surprised his mother by picking out a church hymn, "Trust and Obey," by ear. It wasn't long before he was taking piano lessons in a nearby town, with almost a 38-mile journey. Apart from this, his talents didn't stop at the piano. Soon, he was mastering the alto saxophone, cornet, and baritone horn. By 5th grade, he impressed the high school band director enough to join the marching band, even while he was a child. Music seemed to pour out of him. Still, not all dreams come easy. Claude studied classical music for nearly 10 years but realized his hands would never let him honestly play it. It was too complicated, he admitted. Instead, he invented ways to fake the classical style, creating something new in the process. Music had given him a way out of the frustration he felt with his body. Though he said, "I felt like the world had cheated me," he also knew music had saved him. On the other hand, without the limitations, he might have been just another ex-football player selling insurance in some small town. By the time he was a teenager, Claude's world was all about music. At 15, he made his first recording with a friend and classmate, David Gates. The song, "Joe Baby," was the start of something bigger, and though Tulsa was still home, his eyes were set on a life beyond it. Consequently, while performing underage in local clubs with his band, the Starlighters, he used a fake ID to sneak in, calling himself Leon Russell. The name would stick. Even when he played night after night in dimly lit venues, there was no rest. "Working late into the night and going to school by day, I slept in English a lot," he confessed. But the music made the exhaustion worth it. After high school, the road beckoned. Jerry Lee Lewis invited Leon to tour with him, and college fell by the wayside. For Leon, there was no choice. "I figured this was my chance to eat in a lot of restaurants and travel around," he said. The world had shown him hardship, but it also offered escape through music. When he reached Los Angeles, though, things weren't easy. The stricter liquor laws meant fewer places to perform. Leon found himself hungry, almost starving. California wasn't the land of opportunity he had hoped for, but he didn't give up. Instead, he dug deeper into his craft, studying guitar with James Burton and finding work as a session musician. Those years in the studio were transformative. Leon played with everyone: Jan and Dean, Ricky Nelson, George Harrison, and even Barbara Streisand. He was everywhere, blending into the background while adding his magic to countless hits. But even then, Leon knew he wasn't meant to be in the shadows forever. He wasn't confined to one sound, he played it all: rock, blues, gospel, bluegrass, whatever moved him. The pain in his life had shaped his music, giving it a depth few could match. Through every challenge, every hurdle, he found a way to turn it into a melody. In March 1970, Joe Cocker found himself in a tight spot. U.S. immigration demanded that he either perform immediately or face deportation. Some say the real reason for the Rush tour was darker, threats of physical harm if Cocker didn't comply. Caught between a rock and a hard place, Cocker turned to Leon Russell to help him put together a band for a 48-day tour, with barely a week to prepare. It was a near impossible task. Russell was left scrambling, auditioning and rehearsing musicians at breakneck speed. The result was Mad Dogs and Englishmen, a chaotic whirlwind of music that would define a pivotal moment in rock history. Russell was tasked with finding a 10-piece band and assembling the Space Choir, a group of 10 backup singers. Amidst the madness, Russell took control. Cocker was in no condition to lead, too deep in the haze of drugs to be fully present. When Russell asked if the music sounded right, Cocker said, "It never sounds right to me." Uncertain of how to respond, Russell took matters into his own hands. "I'll just do whatever I want," he thought, and he did just that. Russell recruited musicians from Delaney and Bonnie Bramlett's band. He put together a tour that was raw, electric. Claudia Lennier, a singer on the tour, recalled how Russell had a special gift. He could blend white gospel with black gospel, creating something wholly unique. Elton John, watching the Mad Dogs and Englishmen concert film, saw what others might have missed. "Joe was an amazing singer, but it was Leon's band," he said. Russell's command of the music was unmistakable, his presence larger than life. Dressed in a top hat and a basketball jersey he picked up from a thrift store, Russell knew how to put on a show. "I'm an actor," he said. "I was just trying to make a show." While all of this was happening on stage, Russell was also working behind the scenes, releasing his 1970 solo album, Leon Russell. It was filled with collaborations from some of the biggest names in music: Bob Dylan, Eric Clapton, George Harrison, and Mick Jagger, to name a few. The album featured 2 songs that would become timeless: A Song for You and Delta Lady. These tracks were more than just songs. They were confessions set to music. A Song for You, written in just 10 minutes, came straight from Russell's soul. It was like it came from another place, he admitted, surprised at how quickly it flowed. That song would go on to be covered by over 40 artists, including musicians like Ray Charles and the Carpenters. Ray Charles's version even earned him a Grammy in 1994. It was no longer just Russell's song. It had taken on a life of its own. On the other hand, Delta Lady was first brought to life by Joe Cocker during the Mad Dogs and Englishmen tour. The song spoke of longing and love, and while Cocker's version altered some lyrics, Russell's soul was still in there. It was a hit that carried the weight of unspoken heartache. In the 1970s, Russell was everywhere. He played piano on Dave Mason's Alone Together and had his first hit with The Letter, performed by Cocker. That same year, Russell performed at the Fillmore East, sharing the stage with Elton John. It was clear, Russell was no longer just a sideman. He was becoming a star in his own right. His concerts were unscripted, raw, and honest, much like the man himself. In 1971, George Harrison invited Russell to play at the concert for Bangladesh. It was a turning point in Russell's career. He wasn't just playing piano, he was playing bass and singing harmonies with Harrison and Bob Dylan. The benefit album from that concert would win a Grammy for Album of the Year in 1973, further cementing Russell's place in music history. The 1970s was a blur of performances, collaborations, and studio sessions. Russell released Leon Russell and the Shelter People, which became his first gold album. He worked with famous blues musician Freddie King and, under the name Hank Wilson, explored the world of country music. He was a man of many faces because he was never content to play in one genre. With the passage of time, Russell built more than just music. He bought properties in Oklahoma, including the Church Studio, where he recorded some of the greatest names in music, like Willie Nelson and Eric Clapton. But perhaps one of the most exciting moments of Russell's career came with the filming of A Poem is a Naked Person. He hated the documentary so much that he refused to let it be seen for 40 years. The film was locked away until Russell finally had a change of heart. And then there was Hank Wilson, Russell's country alter ego. Hank was born on a road trip, inspired by truck stop tapes. It was an experiment in country music that turned into something more. The 1973 album Hank Wilson's Back Volume 1 became a hit, and Russel's first track, Roll in My Sweet Baby's Arms, became a minor success. It was a joyful diversion in a career filled with heavy moments. Russel's contributions to music weren't limited to his recordings. He helped shape the success of the Gap Band and even had a hand in the creation of Lindrum machines. His ideas about rhythm and swing timing found their way into the technology that would change how music was made. He was always thinking ahead, always finding new ways to leave his mark. In the 1980s, Leon Russel's journey was filled with both highs and lows. Alongside the likes of Aretha Franklin, he lent his voice to ABC's We Belong Together campaign. This promotional song echoed the changing landscape of television. Yet, while he found himself on screens across America, he never strayed far from his love for live performances. Touring became his lifeline. He spent the early part of the decade hitting the road with Newgrass Revival. This unusual but powerful collaboration blurred the lines between country and rock. On May 1, 1982, Russel took the stage at Joe Ely's third annual Tornado Jam in Texas. His presence electrified the 25,000-strong crowd, with performers like Joan Jett and the Crickets sharing the spotlight. But no matter the size of the stage, Russel played like his life depended on it. That was his way, that was the only way he knew. Despite his relentless schedule, Russel kept releasing music, even when the industry shifted beneath him. The release of Hank Wilson, Volume 2 in 1984 carried a distinct country flavor, marking yet another return to his alter ego. This was the side of Leon that had always drawn people in, the cowboy with a piano, lost somewhere between honky-tonk and gospel. It was followed by Solid State, a bluesy album recorded in Tennessee. Like always, Russel was chasing sounds no one could quite pin down, wandering from one genre to the next with ease. By 1985, Russel found himself back on tour, his road-weary soul refusing to rest. That same year, he released Best of Leon Russel, a song for you, recalling the world of his rich, complex history. But even as he played his greatest hits, Russel never stopped moving forward. The years went on, stretching with tours alongside Edgar Winter, where their shows lit up stages across the US and Canada. Winter's wild energy and Russel's steady, soulful playing formed a partnership that defied the years. Fast forward to the 1990s, when Russel kept creating, though quieter this time. He reworked old songs, adding fresh layers of meaning to the familiar. In 1991, with help from Bruce Hornsby, he released Anything Can Happen. It was a comeback, but not one he sought attention for. Leon was never one for the limelight. He was content with his music doing the talking. The mid-90s brought a more reflective Russel. He founded his record label and released Hymns of Christmas. This instrumental album felt like a love letter to his roots in gospel. But even when he looked back, the past haunted him. In 1998, he revived Hank Wilson once again for Legend in My Time, Hank Wilson Volume 3, an album that carried the weight of lost years and fading dreams. By the 2000s, Leon Russel was becoming a memory to the mainstream, but to those who knew him, his music never lost its power. He performed at festivals, small venues, and big stages alike, always with the same passion. He wasn't chasing fame anymore, he was chasing the music. However, with time, his health began to decline. And in the 2010s, Russel's career took a sudden turn. Elton John, who had once opened for him, reached out with an offer to collaborate. Their project, The Union, released in 2010, was a beacon of hope in Russel's later years. Though he was battling illness, Russel poured everything into the album, which became his sixth gold record. It was a hint that no matter how much time had passed, Leon Russel still had music in his heart. During his final years, the stage began to feel heavier, and the keys on the piano were a little harder to press. But Russel kept going. Despite undergoing surgery and suffering from heart failure, he toured through the pain, refusing to slow down, until finally, on November 13, 2016, the music stopped. Leon Russel had quite a good bond with the members of the Wrecking Crew. Hence, in this reunion interview, Cher finally speaks up about Leon Russel. She remembered Leon Russel being a quiet man. Cher recalls, Leon never said boo to anybody. He'd just come in, play his piano, and that was it. Then she went on to share one of the incidents when, one day, things took a turn, and Leon came to work completely drunk. I mean, so drunk, she emphasized. After that, he sat at the piano, and for once, he was talking, which was a rare sight. Everyone was looking at him like, "Did you see Leon? Did you see him?" Cher chuckled at the memory. According to the lead vocalist, Leon was so funny, but all this was unexpected. Consequently, everyone was laughing until the session started. And Philip, who was leading the session, was ready to reel things in. Cher also remembered the way Philip looked at Leon and asked, "Leon, have you ever heard of the word respect?" That's when the jaw-opening moment happened. While Leon was still intoxicated, he jumped up on the piano and shouted, "Philip, have you ever heard of the word F?" That was it. Everyone lost it. People were rolling on the floor, crying with laughter. It took them 30 minutes to pull themselves together. Cher recalled with a mix of amusement and disbelief. Then Lou McCreary, a trombonist, remembered a different Leon. A country boy from Oklahoma, lived in a rundown motel on Sunset Boulevard when he first arrived in town. He didn't even have a phone. He used to just hang around the studios, picking up jobs wherever he could. Lou said, "We told him, 'Leon, if you want to work in this town, you need a phone.'" He laughed, shaking his head. But that was Leon, real country. After him, Tommy Tedesco, the Wrecking Crew's guitarist, shared a moment when Leon was brought in for a session with Glenn Campbell. There, Leon felt out of place and started to panic. Glenn, unfazed, just said, "Leon, play that stuff you did in Oklahoma. They don't know anything here." And then Leon did. He played his way, and that's when everyone realized. That's what made him special. That was his style, and it stuck with him from then on. After that, Hal Blaine, the drummer, always marveled at Leon's piano playing. He had that magic touch, Hal recalled. It was down-home, Southern-style piano playing, and it was magnificent. Leon didn't need to say much. His fingers did all the talking, and they spoke volumes. Larry Knechtel also couldn't resist talking about Leon and remembered a session where Leon played alongside Al DeLory on electric piano, just filling the sound. Leon went on to play acoustic, and when the king played his melody, Larry couldn't help but be amazed. Leon had hands that could reach octaves. "You can't beat that," Larry said. Leon had something that couldn't be taught, because music was in his bones, in every note he touched. Lastly, Julius Wechter remembered a night when an 80-piece orchestra was waiting on Leon. At that time, the clock kept ticking, 8 o'clock, but Leon didn't make it. The tension was building, and then the door creaked open. Leon walked in, limping as usual, making his slow way across the room to the piano. Not a word was spoken. He sat down, lifted the lid, ready to play, but before he could, Ben Barrett's voice came through the booth, sharp and stern, "Leon, don't you ever be late again." Leon didn't respond. He closed the piano, stood up, and limped right back out of the room, without playing a single note. He left, and the room fell silent. There was something about Leon. He moved to the beat of his own drum, even when it caused waves. Leon's story is so vast that even the other band members couldn't stop speaking about him and praising him. The world might not see an icon like Leon again, but don't you think that one day, a reborn version of Leon Russell will take to the stage and set it on fire? Please share your thoughts about it in the comments section, and remember to subscribe to my channel.